What's going on, guys? Dare here with Fantasy Football Advice, coming at you with another fantasy football video. Today, we got a good one for you guys. We are going to go over the top value picks in the middle rounds. In this video, we'll be going over 2 wide receivers and 2 running backs that are coming in as excellent values in drafts based upon current ADP when we bounce them against our rankings. One thing to keep in mind is that this list is not all inclusive. There are many players that we have listed as targets in the middle rounds that are coming in as excellent values on draft day. In this video, we'll be going over 4 of them, but if you want access to all of our sleepers, targets, busts, player breakdowns on all draftable players, risk ratings, tier-based rankings, and more, consider becoming members of our website and signing up for one of our draft packages. Our website is not only loaded with information, but we've simplified things, making it as easy to digest as ever. So if that's something that does interest you, go to our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com, link as always in the description box below. Whether you do decide to become a member or not, all of our YouTube content is completely free. All we ask in return is that if you do enjoy the content and want to see more of it, if you could just hit that like button. It definitely helps us out to grow the channel. With all of that said though, let's hop over to our stat of the day. Yesterday's stat of the day was according to Fantasy Points War Metric, how many quarterbacks finished in the 10 most valuable players in fantasy last season. The correct answer was actually 3. Congratulations to Bryce Stoll, who was the first to get this right on YouTube. And as for Twitter, at @Iam_SawyerHebs. Congratulations to both of you, but as for today's stat of the day, how many tight ends in 2020 finished the season with 15 or more red zone targets? Once again, that's how many tight ends in 2020 finished the season with 15 or more red zone targets. Leave your answer in the comment section down below. We'll be happy to let you know who wins in tomorrow's video. Alright guys, now without further ado, let's get right into our first player, and we're going to start at the wide receiver position, and we're going to begin with none other than DeVonta Smith of the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, DeVonta Smith was a new addition to the wide receiver core of the Philadelphia Eagles, added in this year's draft class. The Philadelphia Eagles invested heavy draft capital into securing DeVonta Smith onto the roster, one of the premier wide receivers in this year's class. He was ultimately selected with the 10th overall pick, which at this point we can't say is all that surprising with how poorly the Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver core played in the 2020 season. Even the Eagles' first round draft pick in the 2019 draft class, Jalen Reagor, drafted with the 24th overall pick, he was unable to put anything together himself, ultimately finishing the season with a mere 31 receptions on 54 targets, 396 receiving yards, and 1 mere touchdown. Needless to say, the Philadelphia Eagles have a desperate need to fill at the wide receiver position, and that's exactly where DeVonta Smith fits into the equation. While DeVonta Smith may not hop off the board when you're looking at his size, he is 6 foot, a mere 170 pounds, so definitely on the thinner size for an NFL wide receiver. But outside of that, that's really the only knock you can give him. He has some of the smoothest routes in this entire draft class. He's a natural hands catcher, so you're not going to see him rely on his body in order to catch targets deep downfield. There are numerous examples on film where you can see him changing his tempo mid-route to really throw off defenders, and that's a skill set we see used commonly in the NFL. And if we're talking contested catch rate, this is an area DeVonta Smith excels in as well. All in all, it's safe to say that the Philadelphia Eagles got a very well-rounded receiver on their hands, definitely the type of receiver to easily be able to produce in year 1, and if we're talking for our fantasy rosters, that's exactly what we're looking for rookie wide receivers. Each and every season, we're seeing rookie wide receivers make more and more of their stamp in the NFL. This was showcased last season by Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings. He was able to put up 1,400 receiving yards on an offense already led by Adam Thielen, and even CeeDee Lamb was able to come in and produce as a top 30 wide receiver last season with Andy Dalton mainly as the quarterback in a wide receiver core that already had wide receivers like Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper, a very crowded wide receiver core by anyone's metric. So when we're talking about the opportunity share in year 1 for rookie DeVonta Smith, who's heading into a wide receiver core led by Travis Fulgham as well as Jalen Reagor, the opportunity for him to succeed early is definitely going to be there. Right now, it appears the Philadelphia Eagles are virtually all in on Jalen Hurts, which is another reason why they feel comfortable with adding an elite playmaker at the wide receiver position at the early stages of the draft. So no matter which way you look at it, DeVonta Smith is in a prime position to succeed. Considering this is a value video though, we do have have to establish where we have him ranked up against where his current ADP is. And as it stands today, we have DeVonta Smith listed as a target in the 6th round. We have him ranked as the 35th best wide receiver off the board, and when compared to current ADP, DeVonta Smith is currently ranked outside of the top 40, and when bounced up against the overall rankings, you can actually nab him for a 9th round pick, actually being drafted outside of the top 100. If that doesn't scream value, I don't know what does. But let's hop into the next player. We're sticking with the rookie theme, and it's none other than Trey Sermon of the San Francisco 49ers. Believe it or not, when it comes to ADP, Trey Sermon can be nabbed for just one draft spot lower than that of DeVonta Smith, coming in at the 104th overall pick in half PPR leagues, which is over 2 full rounds lower than where we currently have him in our rankings. Currently, we have Trey Sermon ranked as the RB29. When bounced up against where he currently lands in Fantasy Pros at the RB position, he is currently ranked as the RB43, so a massive gap there. And while admittedly we are a bit lower on some of the pieces in the backfield of the San Francisco 49ers, I think we all can agree that the ranking of the RB43 is just a bit overkill. You gotta think that no matter what ends up panning out at the RB position, Trey Sermon is going to get his fair crack at the starting job for the San Francisco 49ers. The reason that they felt comfortable with investing pretty high draft capital into a running back is because this is a team that is strong rushing, but it's also a team that has absolutely no identity at the RB position. Over the past few years, they've trusted running backs like Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, Tevin Coleman, just to name a few, and we all know that neither of those running backs have been able to stay healthy over a long stretch of time. Now, admittedly, that does fit in well with the San Francisco 49ers running back by committee approach, but even if we're factoring in that Trey Sermon is going to be one of the players in that running back by committee, then already you do have a rusher with somewhat of a guaranteed workload week over week as long as he stays healthy, and on the San Francisco 49ers offense, that is valuable. With Raheem Mostert already getting up there in age, already showing kinks in his armor, being a bit injured and banged up last season, and when looking at Tevin Coleman's percent chance of actually remaining healthy next season, Sports Injury Predictor pits Tevin Coleman at an 88% chance of injury for the 2021 season, paving the way for Trey Sermon to receive a significant workload in this offense so long as he can stay healthy. If other running backs in this offense begin to fall down with injuries to running backs on this offense that we've already proven year over year consistently get injured, then the pathway for touches and targets in this offense for Trey Sermon is crystal clear. One of the added benefits for any player in this offense is that there should be an upgrade at play at quarterback. Each season it does feel like any quarterback outside of Jimmy Garoppolo, as soon as they're the starter, the fantasy production for most other pieces in this offense completely falls off a cliff. But with the 49ers going out of their way to move up in the draft to nab Trey Lance, it's clear that he fits exactly what Kyle Shanahan wants to do. So if Jimmy Garoppolo does happen to go down with an injury, we're not expecting Nick Mullins to be the next man up. No, they have Trey Lance, a player that they feel does fit well in this offense. So the overall projected downgrade for fantasy points for players in this offense, if anything were to happen to Jimmy G, it's not going to be as great as we had seen in recent seasons. So overall, that is going to be an upgrade for many of the pieces in this offense. For that, Sermon himself is getting a bit of a boost when it comes to his risk rating for this overall season, another reason in which you should be targeting him in the middle rounds. With that being said, let's hop over to the next player at the wide receiver position, a player we have brought up in previous videos when discussing impending free agents, but this isn't a player who I've been able to discuss post 2021 draft. The wide receiver I'm of course talking about is Curtis Samuel of the Washington football team, and what I'll mention is that very seldom times when looking at the free agent market at the wide receiver position and choosing which teams may possibly be interested in that player based on fit, hardly ever do we find a combination of wide receiver and team where we have a perfect combination of talent and opportunity. That's exactly what we have though when looking at Curtis Samuel being added to the Washington football team. Curtis Samuel being one of the league's most versatile wide receivers in this day and age, being a wide receiver that can line up in any position across the field. He can even line up at running back, taking snaps out of the backfield, an area where across 4 NFL seasons he's amassed a whopping 72 rush attempts, 478 rushing yards, running at a rate of 6.6 yards per carry, and even scoring 5 rushing touchdowns. While obviously it's not fair to compare his production in the run game to any other running backs because they don't play the same position, of course, defenses aren't lined up in order to protect it. What we will say is that when comparing Curtis Samuel and his production in that area to other gadget type wide receivers playing in a similar type role over the past few seasons, Curtis Samuel through this span has been one of the best to do it. It was a bit unfortunate to see somebody with the level of talent of Curtis Samuel be playing third fiddle in an offense with both Robbie Anderson as well as DJ Moore, 2 wide receivers receivers who on the passing depth chart for the Carolina Panthers were steadily ahead of him, but in this offense for the Washington football team, that isn't going to be the case. Outside of Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel should play second fiddle when it comes to who's getting the volume, who's going to have the higher target market share at the wide receiver position in this offense. Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel right behind him, and we should also see Curtis Samuel mop up some of the work that was formerly going to be going to J.D. McKissic. J.D. McKissic, based on team need, was thrust into a role in which he was heavily targeted out of the backfield last season. We're talking a player who played in 16 games but received a whopping 110 receiving targets. A lot of production that was dedicated to that role in the offense is going to be going over to the short passing game of Curtis Samuel, paving the way for Antonio Gibson to be able to play in more snaps while also allowing Curtis Samuel to help stretch the field and open up more opportunities for Terry McLaurin. So no matter which way you look at it, this is one of the best signings in the entire offseason at the wide receiver position. As for Curtis Samuel's value when it comes to where he's currently being ranked on draft day, right now you can land Curtis Samuel to your roster for the low price of the wide receiver 38. When compared to the rankings we have on our website, we have him ranked as the wide receiver 30, so clearly a massive gap in value there. Keep in mind though, this is definitely a player who we do expect to rise when it comes to ADP between now and draft day, so if you are a person who is going to be drafting a bit early, take advantage of the value of Curtis Samuel on draft day because it may not last. Alright guys, we're moving into the final player on this list. Of course, it's going to be a running back, and in fact, it's a player who I haven't brought up once this entire offseason because I wanted to see exactly how not only free agency would pan out, but also the NFL draft. And the running back we have listed as one of the best middle round value picks definitely has to be Mike Davis of the Atlanta Falcons. If you're one of those people who's heading into the 2021 fantasy draft trying to go through the RB0 draft strategy or maybe RB0 light draft strategy, Mike Davis is hands down one of the best targets in the middle round if you're needing to put in a running back into your starting roster with a guaranteed workload that also brings in upside. Currently, Mike Davis can be nabbed in fantasy drafts as the 52nd overall player off the board. That means an early to middle 5th round pick, which if you're considering how many players on your fantasy roster you'll already have locked into your starting lineup before even considering adding a player like Mike Davis, it completely blows my mind how in that stage of the draft you can potentially nab a 3-down workhorse on one of the league's better offenses. I don't believe heading into 2021, many people are going to be quick to combat the argument that the Atlanta Falcons are going to have one of the league's better offenses if they're going to start the season with Julio Jones on the roster. Having a trio in the passing game with Matt Ryan at the helm, led by Kyle Pitts, Julio Jones, and Calvin Ridley, definitely has to be one of the best trios in the entire league. Even if Julio Jones ends up being traded, just having Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts is already a step ahead compared to what many offenses bring to the table. So you have to wonder why many people would have a concern with Mike Davis for this upcoming season, which leads him to be ranked outside of the top 50. I can't personally think of one. Mike Davis last season already proved to be very efficient in both the run game and the pass game. In 2020, on 165 rush attempts, he was able to put up 642 rushing yards, nearly an average of 4 yards per carry. He also scored on the ground 6 times, and in the receiving game, 70 targets, converted 59 of them into receptions for 373 receiving yards, and even scoring 2 touchdowns through the air as well. So we've already established that Mike Davis is going to be the lead back in an offense that's going to be one of the better offenses in the entire league. Then we've also established that if given the opportunity to be a 3-down workhorse, he can definitely get it done in all areas. So the only other concern I can think that people would have with drafting Mike Davis has to be the competition for touches and targets in this offense. Well, that's where it gets even better because there is no true threat to Mike Davis in his potential workload for the 2021 season. No matter which way you look at it, Mike Davis is coming in massively undervalued for this upcoming season. We currently have him ranked as the 20th running back off the board, and when it comes to current ADP, he's being drafted in the 5th round outside of the top 50. If that doesn't scream value, I don't know what does. But guys, that's going to do it for this video. We really hope you enjoyed. If you did, how about hitting that like button? If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. We thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.